Okay, so I've made my cuts, and you can see here that these are the two mounting spots, so you can kind of see the slant, and this will be the upper one and the lower one. And as I explained in part 1, this will be the 1x3 going out, and then the 1x2 going up for the lip. This will be the bottom of the front here, and then the top here. So what I did was I C-clamped these together, measured all my corners out, and put those on the bandsaw, and then took them all out at the same time. Because I want, even if these are just a hair off, I want them to ride on, I want the pieces of wood, the mounting points, I want them to be what keeps it straight. And then we'll go from there. Okay, so I've made my cuts. You can see here that we talked about in part 1. This one back here, you'll notice it's dropped down because the board in the van is a little unlevel, so by maybe a 1/4 inch. So I kind of just gave this one a little extra space, but that's basically what it's going to look like when it's all done. With your, I've got my 4 pieces and here, and this guy will be my little ridge, and it'll make the perfect his and her spot for clothes hanging up on the wall. Nice. So I guess it's time to put some pocket holes in those sides, and let's get this all screwed and glued together so Beth can start painting it. Okay, so I've marked for my pocket holes on each board. I'm going to do this side, do the inside of this one, and then the inside of this one. The only thing, I try to go, you kind of want to go against the grain. So my only concern is with this one down here. What I may do on these bottom ones is, instead of doing pocket holes, I may just come right up through, straight up through the bottom, and zip right into the bottom of these. Sometimes I find when I'm going with the grain, I guess I can do it on this one since I'm against the grain and I'm against the grain. But sometimes I find when I'm going with the grain on some of these, it causes an issue. So on this one and that one out at the end, I might just come right up through the bottom. And on this front piece, what I'll probably do is I may just hammer it in with a, get the air hammer out, and or the air nailer, and nail that front piece on with some glue and let her dry up that way. So time for pocket holes. So for some who may not have seen me use this in the videos before, this is the Craig jig for doing pocket holes. I got this at Lowe's. This has become one of my favorite tools for this van build. I also bought the Craig workbench, which has been just beautiful. I can carry this thing wherever, and it's just awesome. It's got clamp holes on it and so forth, and it's been really nice. And I just put a piece of 3/4 ply on the top of it to make the table a little bigger. But basically what you do with this is, if these are guides that will send this drill bit down and kind of give you the right hole where you want it. But you first have to slide this collar, put this up here, and you make sure that the fat part of this is right here at the 3/4 because I'm using 3/4 stock. So my drill bit is set, and then you have to use the specific Craig screws, which is kind of annoying, but whatever, it works. But on the back, it tells you for what size material you're using, what size screw. So we're using 3/4 inch. So we're going to want the 1 1/4 inch screw, and you have to pay attention to which ones you're buying because they come in coarse and they come in fine. So the fact that I want a good bite on these, I'm going to use, so here's the fine thread and here's the coarse thread. I like the coarse when I'm doing stuff like this because it's a good bite when I'm going into ply. So we're going to put the fine away. And basically what happens is, the other annoying piece, like with a lot of screws now, you need a special bit to put these in, but again, whatever. So basically what happens with this is So, you know, I want to do these 2 holes here, and you want to always try to go against the grain wherever possible. So the fact that this is all set here, I'm going to kind of lay this in, and I'm going to, you know, take my piece here and just kind of slide it in, and I'm going to make sure that it's locked in place there. Now once it's locked in place, I've cranked this down and I've now locked this in place. So this now is not going anywhere, and now I can drill, and I can see I'm going to have a hole here, down in that little spot. So it's going to be ready to drill in. And if you recall earlier in the video, I'm going to probably, this is the one in the front, and I'm going to come up from the bottom. I'm not going to put holes in this one because it's going with the grain, and I don't want it to, you know, I want to have it against the grain grab. So I may just leave those. I'm not 100% sure yet. But so now it's just to go through each of these. I've marked each of them where they need to be drilled, and I just pop them in here, drill my holes, get everything ready, clean all this off, get my stock back out, and just start screwing it together with glue, and then clamp it, let her dry, and we're good to go. Okay, so there is the frame of the overhead cabinets. I just have to skin it out, and we should be good to go. So I have a 26-inch on either side. I did measure just to make sure nobody's is bigger than the others. I had to put the pocket holes outside. I was going to put them inside, but I was afraid if I put them inside, I didn't want them coming out to the end of the board here and causing an issue. So I wanted them to angle in to the board. So I'll have to come up with either some filler and paint, or I'll just maybe make a 1/4-inch skin and throw it on the outside of that. There's a dozen different ways you can cover that up. So anyway, yep, that's the frame. That'll mount over there just like so, and then become our overhead cabinet, and we'll let that glue dry a while, and we'll get something to eat, and I'll cut some skins for it. Okay, so we cut our skins out for it, and so this is the front. I'm going to leave the back open and maybe just put some material in the back, because in the van I have wiring back there, and down the road if I ever want to run more wiring, it's a whole lot easier if I can gain access to those channels in the van where I can run a fish, get some wire back behind there. So what I'll do is I'll put some kind of material up there that'll run between this one and this one. Skin off the top here. You know, I'll just put some kind of material up through here and just staple it. That way if I need to get back there I can. So I cut 1/4-inch plywood that I'll skin the top of this with, and seeing the center here, this center piece, he's maybe an 1/8 inch too high. That's not a big deal. I'll hit him with the belt sander in the morning, knock him down to level, and what I'll do is I'll glue all around, and I'll just use the air nailer and nail that guy in there, and that'll also sturdy this up on the top. I did the same thing on the bottom, just 1/4-inch ply on the bottom, and you know, one of the reasons I'm going with the 1/4-inch versus like a 1/2 inch or something, it saves a lot of weight, and honestly, we're just putting clothes in here, so that's going to be plenty sturdy, because I can nail that 1/4 ply. Actually, I'll probably screw the bottom piece up into here, you know, so I have a nice grab board here, and I'll glue underneath there, you know, so I'll glue that down along there. That'll sit solid on there. Screw it in, so that's going to make a nice firm hold on that and really sturdy that whole piece up. The only piece is I was going to put these pocket holes on the inside, but again I put them on the outside, as I said earlier, because I want to grab into the board. So what I did is I took some of these pieces of scrap cedar, And all these are the original tongue and groove that I put up on the wall, just little scrap pieces of it. This groove here is a little busted apart, but all I did is I ran these down the bandsaw and just made a regular piece of wood out of them. And basically what happens now is, this one's for the bottom, so they just make a nice piece of trim along the bottom. They'll hide those holes up real nice. And I'll just lay this guy here, and we'll paint all of that white and then put a nice cedar trim on the edges of it, and it'll actually look really nice. So it's basically ready to install at this point. You know, I'll have to go out and get some hinges and probably some gas. I'm guessing we'll do some gas shocks to kind of hold the lids open. And hopefully I get that done in the next couple weeks. If not, it's not the end of the world, because I'm also going to put some eye hooks in here with some like some netting, some cargo netting, or some kind of cord here, like a bungee type cord, because again, we're going to put clothes in there. And that's actually, if you think about it, the van, we're building it for a weekend getaway vehicle, maybe 3-4 days at times, or you know, longer on occasion. And if you look at each of those sections, that's basically a weekend bag. You know, that's a gym bag I can put in there, and that's when things are really squished in. So when I just look at that volume, I can fit a lot of clothes in there. But when I'm stacking those clothes up into here, I don't want to open up the door and have things from the top falling out. So I'll have some kind of, you know, hold down strap or something there that will keep them in there. And maybe initially what we do is we use compression packs a lot. We'll compress our clothes in those and put those in there and hold them in that way. So basically that's the his and her overhead cabinet that will mount in that piece. And tomorrow my wife will sand it, she'll paint it, we'll wrap up putting the skins on there, and the only piece I'll have to do yet is along that bottom mounting board that mounts up to the van. There's a couple of screws and a couple of metal straps that I'll have to you know, kind of mark where they're at in here, and maybe just countersink a little hole just so that fits nice and flush up against the van, and I don't have any issues there. But that should be no big deal. So I think it came out okay, and once it's all painted, I think it's going to look really good. And it's light too, you know. This doesn't has not a lot of weight at all, so that might be, I don't know, that might be 10-15 pounds at most, so not a big deal there. And I think it came out okay.